Number one, when? Well, it's going to be released on the 23rd of May 2023. It's going to be available in the App Store. Number two, how much? It is going to be a subscription-based pricing model, which I know is going to potentially not be ideal for some folks, but we'll talk a little more about that later. It's going to be $4.99 per month or $49.99 per year for a subscription for Logic Pro. Now, we're not covering it in this video, but Final Cut Pro is also being released and has the same pricing model if you're into your video editing as well. What do you need to run it? Well, you need an iPad, and you need an iPad running iPad OS 16.4, and it needs to be using at least an A12 Bionic chip. Now, this is good news because my initial thought was maybe Apple are going to make this only available for M1 and M2 based iPads. No, anything running the A12 or later. So that's everything from the 2018 iPad Pros, anything from the iPad Air 3rd generation, so 3rd, 4th, or 5th, any of the last 3 generations of regular vanilla iPads, and the iPad mini 5th and 6th generation. So there's a lot of leeway there in terms of what gear you need to run it. So if you came here just to find out, is this true? Is this actually happening? Is it a drill? No, it's not a drill. You can go to the Apple website. You can see all the information for yourself. So it is 100% true. Check your date. It's not the 1st of April. Yes, Apple have announced Logic Pro on iPad. It's coming on May 23rd. Yeah, and the one final thing I'll say is if you're not sure about it yet, and if you're on the fence, there will be a 1-month free trial as well. So you're going to be able to try it for a month and dip your toe in the Logic Pro waters and then decide, is this going to be for you? Or is this something that is beyond what you need? Because don't forget, GarageBand still exists, is still free, and is still a pretty darn cool DAW for you to sink your teeth into and get creating. So let's move into the more of the details here. So once again, if you're here live and you've got questions, do throw them in the chat here. I've got one from you, John. I've got one from you, JDs. So I'll add those to the questions at the end. But let's go through all the detail because some of your questions may be answered in the details. So I'm going to jump over here. This is all publicly available information on apple.com. So you can go and check all this stuff out in your own time and scroll through and peruse at your convenience. But I thought I'd take you through some of the things that I'm excited about. So let's sort of start at the start here. What is Logic Pro? Well, Logic Pro is Apple's flagship pro-level DAW, digital audio workstation. And what Apple say is that they've redesigned it completely for the touch interface. There's a movie you can watch there if you want to go ahead and do that. But as you can see here, all new creative interface made for touch. This is pretty exciting because to me, when you talk to pros and they say, I don't like using digital stuff because I like putting my fingers on faders. Well, the iPad Surface is, even though it's not, a tactile fader, it is the closest thing to actually doing that. And I find that the reason I love producing on iPad and on mobile devices is that you get that interactive touch. So to find out that this is coming and that all the things that we know and love in GarageBand and Logic Pro on the Mac have kind of been reimagined for a touch interface is pretty darn cool. So that's the first thing I'll say about that. The summary of what I'm excited about, and we'll go through each of these individually. Why is this different to GarageBand? Well, you get a whole bunch of additional features. The things that I've already seen are track stacks. So the ability to group together tracks to process them together. You've got automation of effects, so automation of things outside of just volume. You've got a drum machine designer. You've got the new beat breaker feature. You've got an advanced sound library with actually good searchability, which is something that's been lacking in GarageBand. And you get a master track, which shouldn't be a special order, but for those that have been using GarageBand iOS for a long time, you'll know it kind of is. So there we go. Let's jump into some of the details here. So touch to play expressive software instruments with the power of touch. Tap the keys on the piano trigger drum pad. So this is nothing new for GarageBand users. You'll know that you have the touchscreen interface, and for folks who love jamming out on Alchemy synth or on the piano or on the virtual instruments in GarageBand, you'll be very much at home in what it looks like is coming to Logic Pro. In terms of plugins, this interface looks pretty darn cool. They've got these plug-in tiles. Now, this is similar to BandLab, if you've ever used BandLab on iPad or iPhone, where you've got these tiles. It gives you a simplified, cut-down version of the plugin. You can then dive into the plugin and change everything. And look, it's very similar to what you have on GarageBand Mac and on Logic Pro on Mac as well, but it just gives you some more convenient access. And look, a loudness meter with LUFS. The simple things in life are often the best, just like cornflakes. Project navigation, so you can quickly and intuitively navigate. So pinch and zoom. So for anyone that's ever used GarageBand, you've only got your 32 tracks and you're constantly scrolling up and down and left and right. And while you can do a little bit of zooming, Logic Pro is going to enable you to do a whole lot more in terms of navigating very large projects, which is going to need to, because it's going to extend well beyond the 32 tracks that GarageBand has. Speaking of GarageBand, we have GarageBand import. So yes, you're going to be able to grab your GarageBand projects you've created, bring them on over to Logic Pro, and continue fiddling around with them. So open your GarageBand IS Pro projects in Logic Pro for iPad and let your creativity fly with features and workflows. And I haven't looked at what that little number 1 says, but I'm pretty sure it says, but you can't go back. Because once you're in Logic, and you're not going to be able to go back to GarageBand because of all the additional features that we have in Logic Pro. Apple Pencil and keyboard, and yeah, look at that. Like, this is what I was talking about with the automation stuff. Oh man, I'm looking for. I love a bit of automation, and the ability to do an automation curve by grabbing the Apple Pencil, or even your chunky sausage fingers like me, and just doing a little bit of an up and down there. Yeah, if you've ever tried to use your mouse to click in an automation curve or do something like that, the touchscreen is going to just be absolutely built for this as well. And the Magic Keyboard or Smart Keyboard, you're going to be able to do that. And don't forget, look, Apple will say use your Apple stuff, but you can use yourself any Bluetooth keyboard, any Bluetooth mouse is going to be available. So if you want kind of the best of both worlds, there's nothing stopping you if you're using Logic Pro, just connecting up. Even if you've got a base level iPad, connect up a Bluetooth mouse and a Bluetooth keyboard, like spend $50, and you've got the best of both worlds. You got your touch interface, but you've still got keyboard shortcuts, and you've still got the ability to use your mouse if that's what you desire. So right out of the gate there's some pretty cool stuff that we have that we can see here. But wait, there's more. There's a whole bunch more to explore here in Logic Pro. Welcome to anyone who's joining us here live. If you're watching on the replay, if you're getting value out of this, if you're excited for Logic Pro, give a thumbs up down in the description below and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Are you a fan of this? Will you be checking it out? Or are you scared away by the subscription? I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll get there. What have we got here? We've got the browser, so you can see all your sounds in one place. Quickly view available instrument patches, audio patches, plugin samples and loops. You can audition each sound right from the browser. That is a game changer. For GarageBand iOS users, that's going to be a game changer, because if you've used GarageBand iOS, you would know that every time you go to your sound library, search is not really great. Your filtering's not really great. Your way to audition sounds is not really great. Logic Pro is going to bring a much better browser, and more than that, it's going to bring this new discovery feature. So it's a predictive filtering system. Now, I know as much about this as you do right now, but it says it makes it easier than ever to discover that perfect sound. So I'm assuming it's going to use things like the key of your project and the tempo of your project, and maybe even the genre of your project. It's going to detect that, and then it's going to say, hey, you know what this needs? Some killer 808 hi-hats, baby. And then it's going to throw you some killer 808 hi-hat loops that you can throw in and sample and try out. So that's exciting stuff there. The sound library as well. Well, again, you're familiar with this. Yeah, if you use GarageBand iOS or even GarageBand on Mac or Logic, you get your sound libraries, all the sounds that you can throw at things. And I'm not sure, but I would predict that perhaps we'll see some new sound libraries launching with Logic Pro. We can only hope. Metal, country, folk, yeah, 808s, probably. All right. Playing with Pro plugins. So yes, if you've used Logic Pro on a Mac, you'll know that the plugins are pretty much next level in terms of their flexibility. And something as simple as a channel EQ, you can throw on here, like it's got the clear vocals on there, and then you've got complete control over there. So you can adjust your EQ, you can adjust the Q settings, you can use peak limiters, you can use shelving and high pass and low pass, all of that sort of stuff. And there are a veritable plethora of plugins, and the vast majority of those plugins from Logic Pro on Mac seem to be coming across to Logic on iPad, which is a good news. We've also got some other stuff here, which I'm going to tell you about after a quick drink. Yes, you can probably hear I've got a bit of the Barry White in my voice at the moment. I've got a little bit of a cold, but that's not going to stop me getting excited about Logic Pro. Sample alchemy. So this transforms any sample into a malleable sound that you can perform with just a finger using sample alchemy. So I'll just play the little video there. What this allows you to do is, if you've played around with Alchemy Synth before, you'll know that it has its own preset patches, and then you can play them and you can adjust the sound. You can use all your sliders, you can use all the knobs and the faders, and you can adjust the sound. What you're going to be able to do in Logic Pro and iPad is bring your own sounds in and do all the Alchemy goodness, but with your own audio. That's pretty next level. So the power of the sampler matched with the awesomeness that is Alchemy Synth. Where do I sign up? I'm in. Software instruments, so you'd be familiar with these. You've got all the same not the same software instruments. You got very much advanced versions of the software instruments, just like you have in GarageBand, but you've got them again, a next level version of some synths and some keyboards and some acoustic instruments. Do the guitars sound good? Probably not. But that's okay, because you can plug in your guitars and play to your heart's content. And effects, of course, as well. So we've got a whole bunch of effects that you would be familiar with if you've used Logic Pro. And if you've only ever used GarageBand, you're in for some awesomeness. Because if we just come in and zoom in on a couple of these just real quick, you can see that you got some amazing effects. You didn't want to stay zoomed. That's okay. That's okay. We'll go with that. Once again, you can come in here, you can play around with these on apple.com at your own pace, but I just wanted to jump in and go through some details here. All right. Make the beats. Are you a beat maker? Do you like to make them fire beats and then come into my chat and say, hey, Pete, play my fire beat? Well, yeah. Not surprisingly, you've got the beat sequencer, you've got live loops, you've got all of the beat making tools that you're familiar with, and some that maybe you're not, like Beat Breaker. This looks cool. Again, you can play the little demo here. I won't play the audio because who knows if this is going to be like a copyright strike thing. But go over to apple.com and play the little video there and take a look and a listen, because what this can do is you can bring in your own beat and then you can break it up, you can chop it, you can loop it, you can sample it, you can change it, you can pitch bend it, you can do all the things all there with a touch interface. That looks like it's going to be fun, even for folks like me, even for old man Johns that's not really into beat making, like the beat sequencer, which I never thought I'd be into, but I actually love, and like live loops, which again, never thought I'd be into, but actually really dig. I think the Beat Breaker is going to be cool. The quick sampler, so this enables you to, again, next level stuff here. If you've used a sampler in GarageBand, you record a sample and then you play that with your keyboard. That's pretty cool, yeah. But what if you could bring a sample in and it automatically, like it does in Logic Pro for Mac, it automatically transforms those audio samples into playable instruments. It does the detection of the audio for you and then puts those onto your keys and you can play them. Yes, please. That's cool. So you get that cool sound. So you got a cool sound from a keyboard. Like I've got a Casio out there. I can sample my Casio playing the whole range of notes, bring it here into Logic Pro on my iPad, and then play my Casio without having the Casio anywhere in sight. That's going to be fun times. All right, the step sequencer. So again, it's very similar to the step sequencer that you would have used on GarageBand iOS, or if you've used the step sequencer on GarageBand Mac or Logic Pro Mac. But it's just got a whole bunch more features. So if you're into your sequencing, if you're old school or even new school and you like sequencing, you've got the option there. You've got a drum machine designer, so you're not just stuck with the drum patterns and the drum machines that you have in GarageBand. You can go in and you can pick and choose your kit pieces and create your own custom kit, which is a lot of fun. And then we've got the live loops. And again, live loops grids, they're for some people, they're not for others. Live loops in Logic Pro is like live loops in GarageBand iOS, but it's just going to be better. It's going to be more. Everything is more power, more things. So let's continue on here. Again, if you're just joining us, we are going through the features here. We did the summary at the start. We will be opening up to questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, I'm trying to tag them as we go through. So either hold on to them or just throw them here in the chat. Put a Q in front of your comment. If you're watching on the replay, don't worry. We love you just as much. All you need to do is leave your question down in the comments, and I will definitely be getting back to as many of those as I can. And don't forget the brand new website, logicipad.com. It's so brand new, I don't even have a banner for it. Let's create a banner, logicipad.com. I decided that I wanted to have all my Logic related stuff in one spot. So logicipad.com is where you need to go to find out all the information that's going to keep you creating. So the mixer, yeah. This is where GarageBand people are going to get a little bit excited. A little bit of wee might come out when you start seeing this sort of stuff, because you're going to get a pro level mixer. Yes, you can create a full-featured mixing, command a full-featured mixing console, complete with channel strips, volume faders, pan controls, plugins, sends, and precise automation. So all the things that folks that are using GarageBand might get to the point where you're like, actually, I'd really love to have just the ability to send all of these tracks out to this one reverb And then you can do that because you've got sends and receives. Or I'd love to automate this effect. So instead of having to set up a second track for my delay, I want to do the cool 90s punk delay, lay, on the very last word. You can do that with the automation, and you can do that with precise control there. And again, we'll give this a little play without the audio there. And again, touching the faders, and a mixer with your faders going vertically like we're all used to in other platforms is going to be fantastic. So if you're a GarageBand user, that should definitely be floating your boat right now. Your touch controls multi-touch. So pinching and zooming and rotating and twiddling and doing all the things is going to be so nice to be able to use the touch screen for years. For the 7 years I've been doing this channel, and people are saying, Johns, why do you use GarageBand? Why do you use an iPad when you could use a real computer, a desktop computer, a laptop computer? For me, it's about the touch. It's about that feel. It's about the fact that I started on a 4-track recorder where you got to, twiddle the knobs and slide the faders. And now I use exactly that, but it's on a piece of magic glass. So it's the same sort of thing for myself. Vertical faders just feel right, don't they? Don't they? Absolutely. All right, and track stacks we talked about before. So if you're not familiar with these, this is like track grouping, or similar to sends and receives, but the ability here to just have all your drums. So you've got your one drum mix, and then you've got all your drum pieces in there. So if you're like, the drums just need to be a bit louder, but you've got 8 tracks of drums, you don't want to have to go into 8 different tracks and turn them up a little bit or down a little bit. You want to be able to go to your drum group, your drum track stack, and just turn them up a little bit or down a little bit. Or you want to put the same reverb on every part of a backing vocal, or you set up your backing vocal track stack, and then you can just add the reverb and the delay. You don't have to go into each individual track. So track stacks is going to be whack, Jack, or something like that. Sorry, I'm excited and a little bit medicated, so it's going to be an interesting combination here today. Advanced features for pro workflows. So this is the last little section that we're going to go through here, and then we'll jump into some Q&A and some chats afterwards. So, round trip compatibility. This was my biggest concern going in, because one of the big limitations of GarageBand, if like me, you're a iOS and now a Mac user, is that when you went from iOS to Mac, you can't go back. Whereas what this is saying is that we've got the ability to go between Mac and iPad. Now, limitations, caveat here, is that you won't be able to use things like your audio unit plugins, like your full-fledged plugins. If you're throwing like Isotope on there, that's not going to carry across because that's not going to be available. But any AUV3s or universal plugins that you're using are going to be able to go across. So if you're using an M1 Mac and an iPad, then all those AUV3 and universal plugins are going to work fine. But just keep in mind that anything that is Mac only or desktop version of Logic only is not going to work, at least to start with. And there's workarounds and ways around that. You can freeze, you can bake in your tracks and do some other funky things. But that is good news, because that was my concern. As a creator like myself, I want to be able to grab my project and just throw it wherever I want, and then just keep working on it, not worrying about compatibility between the two. Audio unit extensions you'd be aware of if you're a GarageBand user or any user, that you've got AUV3. So you can tap into compatible third-party instruments and effects directly on Logic Pro, download apps from developers like Eventide, FabFilter, and Moog on the App Store. Or our wonderful friends like Fred Anton Corvest, FAC, Paul from Four Pockets, like all of the apps, all of the plugins that you know and love. LRC5 if you want to. If you want to go old school and you want to throw a plugin on, everything that you use now is going to be able to be used on Logic Pro. And that's good news if you're a Cubasis user, if you're a GarageBand user, if you're an Audio Pro user. If you've got a collection of AUV3 apps, you're golden. You're still going to be able to use them all. Audio hardware or your studio hardware, again, if you've been hanging around this channel or this community for a while, you'll know that you can plug in anything. If you've got a Lightning-based iPad, you can use the Lightning to USB adapter, and you can plug in anything. And if you've got a powered hub, you can plug in multiple things. If you've got a USB-C based iPad, then you can use a USB-C adapter, and it's even easier to get any gear. Just keep in mind, like everything else on iOS, class compliant is key. So you need something that doesn't require a driver to run. So anything that is made for iOS or is class compliant or driverless is going to work fine and dandy like sour candy on your Logic Pro setup. For you Ableton users, I don't understand you, but I think you're cool, and I think I want to be like you one day. I don't use Ableton, but you can use Ableton Link to sync your playback with your Ableton rigs and various Ableton doings and goings on that you do there, and sidechain routing. So yes, the one thing that you technically can't do in GarageBand iOS, but with the new audio scope from 4Pockets, you actually can. I've got a video coming out about that soon. Yeah, you can buy a $10 plugin now and sidechain in GarageBand, but out of the box with Logic Pro, you can sidechain to your heart's content. So that is it. That is a lot of stuff, right? That's 20 minutes worth of features, and we've only scratched the surface. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more fun once we all get our hands on this on the 23rd of May. You can bet your bottom dollar that I'll be checking it out very early on. I will be your guinea pig, so if you're not sure and you don't know if you want to dive in, come and check out. We'll be doing some first look videos. We'll be doing some live streams where we're actually going to be diving headfirst into Logic Pro, checking out some old GarageBand projects, seeing how we can remix those, and creating brand new songs from scratch. So a lot of stuff to come. Yes, the Q&A here at the end here. Let's take a look at this. How much does it cost? So yeah, here in Australia, don't freak out. That's Australian prices, $7.99 a year or $59. Sorry, $7.99 a month or $59 for the year. And what iPad do you need? Well, again, you can go over to logicipad.com, which is my website that has all the information there, or you can check this one out, because anything with an A12 Bionic chip or later running iPad OS 16.4. So what do you think? What is your feedback? Let me know. I'm really keen to know what people think about this and what questions you have here. If you would like to now jump in, yes, sorry, US is $4.99 or $49.99, as Matt has correctly identified here. So yeah, you're going to pay $5. So if you pay it monthly, it's about $60 a year. If you pay it yearly, it's $50 a year. So I would, like all things, I would highly recommend you start month. You can always do the month free trial, and then if you decide to go with it and you say, yep, this is definitely for me, you can do the $50 a year. And did a lot of people hope and think and pray that it would be a straight outright payment? Yes, probably. Is it ideal for everyone in every scenario that it's a subscription? No, not really. So my personal view with this sort of stuff is subscriptions are fine when you've got something that is providing ongoing value. And I guess the good news about this, and accuse me of being on the side of Apple if you want, but the good news here is that this is going to be version 1.0 of this software. And Apple are making a pretty clear indication, especially because Final Cut Pro is coming along for the ride, that this is going to be something that's going to develop over time. They didn't put an M2 chip in the latest iPad Pros by mistake. They didn't put 16 gig and 8 gigabytes of RAM in the new iPads by mistake. They did that for a very good reason, and that was so that pro creators, pro video and pro audio creators have access to these sort of tools. And they've kind of pivoted recently. I was listening to a podcast and I kind of had the same view on this, is that the pro workflow used to be people working in animation studios or in movie studios or for TV. They were the ones that were the pro Apple users. These days, guess who the pro Apple users are? They're you. They're me. They're TikTokers. They're Instagram models. They're creators on YouTube. They're people that want access to this stuff, but they want it to be quick and simple and intuitive, as opposed to having to read a 14-page manual to work out how to use Photoshop or Premiere Pro or any of those other apps that we've all probably played around with in the past. So, yeah, my view on that is it is what it is. I know that's a bad thing to say because people don't like it. Shouldn't it be different? It's not. So you do have a choice. You do have an option. And the good news is there are still other options out there. So you can still use things like Cubase's 3. It's still a great DAW. You can still use GarageBand. There'll be some of you out there that will not need all this. Some of you watched all that and are salivating. You've literally got drool covering your keyboard or your device right now because you want to dive in and play with the beat breaker, or you want to dive in and grab those vertical faders and grab those channel strips and tweak your knobs. And there'll be people that are like, yeah, not for me. I've got enough trouble learning GarageBand. I don't need this. And you might not. And guess what? GarageBand will still exist. It'll still be free. And it'll probably benefit. The one thing that we've seen is that GarageBand has benefited from Logic Pro. So GarageBand has benefited by getting things like the Live Loops grid, by getting things like the sound library. So it is going to actually help along the way. There you go. I need it now. Yes, yes, it is coming out the end of May. So we'll dive into the questions because we do have a few there. But if anyone else has questions here, please do put a question or put a big Q in front of your question. And if you're watching on the replay again, if you hear, oh man, I missed the live, I didn't get to ask my question, jump down in the comments below. I'll be hanging out there for at least the next 24 hours, answering any questions that may indeed come up. And don't forget, logicipad.com. You can jump there right now. In fact, let's just give it a quick test because it's so fresh. I've literally just set up the diversion. Logic Pro. No, that's not the right one. It's Logic iPad. I got the wrong one. LogicIPad.com. It went to a GoDaddy site. I'm like, what? What's this? What's this tomfoolery? So at the moment, it is just a little landing page. There you go. You can join the mailing list if you haven't already. So at the moment, you've got a link to this live stream here. You've got the Apple web page. You've got the Apple press release announcement. And then you've got the basic information that we've been through here today. So that page will grow there on logicipad.com. That's where all the tutorials, all the live streams, all the information as it's released, as we find it, that'll all be shared. It'll be nice and easy for you to remember because you'll be like, where do I get my Logic iPad information? Oh, I know, logicipad.com. That's where it'll be. All right. Let's jump in and do some Q&A, shall we? Are you hearing occasional crackling? I hope so, but probably not. Maybe I need to come down a little bit on my audio here. It's probably when I'm getting excited. Yeah, a little bit of crackling. That's never good. I apologize for that, for the audio coming through. I'm probably trying to compensate for my lack of voice by talking too loudly. Yeah. Bad news. All right. Well, we'll do the Q&A, and then we'll finish up here as well. So, John Branninger says, any news on what happens to GarageBand on iOS? So I think GarageBand will remain. Apple aren't going to. There was a big rumor. Someone came to me 3 years ago, and they're like, "You know that you're wasting your time, Johns. GarageBand is on iOS is going away. It's not staying." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't think that Apple would bother doing that. They might not develop it as aggressively as they did before, but I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it'll be hanging around. So I think you'll be fine if you're a GarageBand user. And like I said, I think if anything, this is reinforcing Apple's desire to continue. So if you're a GarageBand and iMovie user, I think the fact that Logic Pro and Final Cut Pro are now going to be on iPad is only going to benefit you because there'll be some tweaks and there'll be some changes that might actually go there. If they add some new templates for Final Cut Pro, maybe iMovie gets a few. If they add a new sound pack for Logic Pro, maybe GarageBand gets thrown a bone. So I think you'd actually be okay with that. Jays D says, is this strictly for music production or can you do a video editing to audio sound design? Yes, a lot of people do use Logic Pro in conjunction with their video editor. So obviously you've got Final Cut Pro on iOS now as well. So the two in tandem is going to be what a lot of people use. And I'm sure Apple, this will be the 1.0 versions, but I'm sure Apple will be working on ways to make that crossover so that you can actually have some integration between the two, integration between both the audio as well as the video with Final Cut Pro. Weary Pirates, hello to you. Yeah, heard good things about Logic. Looking forward to trying it. And that's the good thing. Everything is going to be good. Exactly when it peaks. Yeah, it was me getting excited. Sorry, I had my audio up too loud because when I did my test beforehand, I was, as you can hear, the voice is going a bit. So I think I was pushing my voice and then straining and then peaking and getting a few clips there. So hopefully I'll calm down a little bit now and it should be good. Alrighty, let's go back to the questions that we had here. So I've answered that one. Robert says, I wonder how large the download it will be. That's a really good question because I think with all of the different sound packs and instruments and plugins that you're going to get, if you look at GarageBand at the moment, how big is GarageBand? Let me just check in the App Store. I'll just jump over to my iPad and check out. The problem is it's hard to work out because you download the actual apps and then you got to download all the sounds. So Logic Pro on Mac, for instance, the actual app is only maybe 3 or 4 gig, but then you've got like a 50 gigabyte sound library. So I think it's going to be pretty similar. I don't think looking at GarageBand is really going to help us here, but we'll load it up anyway and see how big the app is. Does it tell us here? 1.6 gigabytes. So I'd imagine that the Logic Pro app itself will be around about 3 or 4 gig, 5, 6 maybe more. I don't know, quite a bit. Yeah, it'll be 666. Yeah, GarageBand is almost 2. Yeah, I think you're right, Jade. I think it'll be around about the 3, 4, 5 gigabyte for all of the stuff. I can't remember how much Logic Pro on Mac is, but it's around that mark. So I think it'll be around about there as well. Yes, thank you, Luriality. If you'd like to make a donation to help support me, because guess what? I'm about to get an extra $50 a year bill for this channel because I will definitely be getting the yearly subscription once it becomes available. You can leave a donation using the PayPal link, or you can be awesome like Adam Gehring and leave a donation right here on YouTube if you're watching live or on the replay. Just popping in, does this only work with the M processor versions? So no, the good news, Adam, was that they announced it's going to be anything that's the A12 Bionic or later. So just to give you a bit of a clue on that one, if you jump on over here to logicipad.com that I've set up for you, Logic Pro for iPad. So anything with the A12 Bionic chip or above. So what that's going to be is any of your Pros from 2018, 2020, or 2021, 2022. So anything from first generation, basically, when the 11-inch came out in 2018, all the way through to 2023. So that's 5 years of backwards compatibility, which is pretty darn good. Same with the iPad Air. You're going to get the 3rd gen, 4th gen, and 5th gen. Same with the regular iPad. My kids have got, one's got an 8th gen and one's got a 9th gen iPad. They're both going to be able to use this on their iPads, and I can't find that ridiculously amazing. The iPad Mini 5th gen and 6th gen as well. So anything, as long as you've got the A12, and by the way, if you're wondering, how do I know if I have an A12? Well, if you go to apple.com, you come in here to iPad, and then you go to compare. What you can do is you can put your model in here. So let's just say you were like, oh, what did John say again? I've got the iPad 8th generation, and I'm not sure if I've actually got an A12 Bionic. Well, you can come down here and see, there it is, 10.2, A12, A12 Bionic chip. So there you go. You're running the iPad 8th generation. You're going to be golden. You're going to be able to be using your iPad with Logic Pro, which is pretty darn cool indeed. Yeah, 9th gen will work, 10th gen will work, 8th gen will work. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good. GarageBand on my iPhone has 5.82 gigs. Yeah, so I think once you add all the stuff, you'll be taking up some space. There'll be some space requirements, I think. Will my plugins work with Logic Pro? Will my plugins work? I'll just take a drink and then we'll answer that one. So I mentioned this earlier as we went through. So plugins that will work are universal plugins that are available for both M1 Max and iOS, as well as AUV3 plugins. So the plugins that won't work are going to be any audio unit or VSTs or anything that you can use within Logic Pro for Mac aren't really going to be available in Logic Pro for iOS, at least at this stage. I don't think that'll change over time. So, yeah, I think any of your current Mac plugins won't work, but any of your current iOS plugins, you'll be golden. Should be free if you've already purchased Logic Pro, at least discounted. That would be cool. Look, what is my personal view here? My view is that there should have been 2 options. A full payment option, which is the same price as the desktop version, so $199 US or $299 Australian, or a subscription model. Apple have made it pretty clear that they're going more towards the services model, which means that it's going to be the subscription model. And I think as long as there are updates, as long as we get consistent updates and consistent, because that's the thing, I don't mind subscriptions if you're getting stuff. What I don't like a subscription is for a piece of software that never changes, because then it does feel like you're just paying over and over again for the same stuff. But if you're actually getting an improved experience and it's actually moving with the times, and here's the thing, especially the newer iPads, they're going to have some headroom to be able to do some pretty cool darn stuff with this thing. So I think it's going to be good. Would I love to be both? So you have the choice. Yes. Am I that annoyed that it's not? Not as annoyed as I thought I'd be, to be honest, because I'll pay for subscriptions, but as long as they're adding new content, new details to that. Question: How do you create or edit your website? My website is very, very basic. I actually use a free service called WordPress.com. It's not even on WordPress. I'm a very bad web designer and web creator. Been meaning to upgrade it for years and years, but I use hover.com for all of my web and domain registration, and then I use WordPress.com to administer my website. So yeah, like it works for me, and the information is there. But yeah. Yes, Logic Pro and Final Cut were released on May 23rd, not March, but May 23rd of this year, and it'll be ready to rock and roll, which will be very cool. Thank you, Ethan. I appreciate the kind donation. Yes, everything should be free, even my groceries. I wish. I wish I had free groceries. That'd be cool. Question from Mark Bro. How long do you think it will take for the third-party dev to output to iPad? I see IK Studio Max or Complete on the Mac. When can I expect them to work on iPad? Well, if I know Apple, and I don't have any inside knowledge to this whatsoever, but I would be very surprised if the large audio developers haven't had access to at least the bare bones framework of this or had some knowledge that this was coming down the pipeline. So I would suggest that there is already development work underway from a lot of those larger plug-in manufacturers. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see something soon, maybe even at the WWDC. So in June, we've got the Worldwide Developers Conference. Yeah, maybe Isotope, maybe Waves come out then, and suddenly we've got all of these, all the high end. Like, how cool would that be if you had like Isotope RX on iPad for your Logic Pro? I mean, it would be expensive, but it would probably be again, it would be another subscription model, I'd say, where you'd have to pay for that, or maybe all the Waves plugins that have recently had some controversy going to subscriptions. So maybe things like that will become available. So yeah, I think it'll be sooner than we think. I think sooner rather than later. But then again, you're talking to the guy who famously 3 months ago on a live stream said that this is never happening, that Logic Pro is never coming to iOS. Yeah, I know. All right. And the other thing to keep in mind is, yeah, the price is reasonable for now. That's the other thing. Think about this in terms of other software costs for this sort of production. So $4.99 per month for Final Cut Pro and $4.99 per month for Logic Pro. If you want to use Adobe Photoshop, it's $10 a month just for that one app. If you want to use Premiere Pro, if you want the whole Adobe Creative Cloud suite, it's in the when I was here, like when I used to use Premiere Pro, I had to pay for the Creative Suite, and it was in the vicinity of $60 a month Australian, which is just that's next level. That's out there, man. That's $700 a year for that. So when I look at this and it's $59 a year Australian to use Logic Pro on my iPad, I think I'm getting $59 worth of value. But maybe you aren't, and that's okay. It's not a problem. Like again, the thing with this is it's not compulsory. Like you might look at this and go, "Oh, that's really cool, and I really want it," but it doesn't fit in with my budget. Well, guess what? There's a lot of things I really want that don't fit in with my. I love an 80-inch 8K TV, but it doesn't fit in with my budget right now. So maybe in the future. So we can't always have everything we want, can we? Johnson, I wonder if Apple, if future will, yeah, their upcoming VR. So this is interesting. I did sort of allude to this and think out loud to say, I wonder if there's going to be a link, and I sort of thought it would be like Minority Report style, where you've got the VR glasses on and you're moving things like who's the guy? Tom Cruise in Minority Report, just like sliding windows around. We can dream, can't we? We can dream. Could be cool. Greetings from Colombia. Do you know if it would be possible to have MIDI learn in order to control parameters in the iPad with MIDI controller knobs? This is a great question. We don't really know yet, so we haven't had the details around MIDI support. There's a couple of things that GarageBand doesn't do. One is MIDI CC control, so being able to control like your knobs and your faders and have additional controls for your keyboards and your MIDI interfaces. And the other thing is MIDI out, so being able to send MIDI out either as a file or as commands to go out to your gear. Logic Pro on Mac does have a lot more functionality with that, so I'm imagining that that'll be something that we see in Logic Pro for iOS. Can I guarantee that it'll be there in version 1.0? No, I can't. And it might be something that they continue working on and part of their future roadmap as they continue developing the app. So the answer there is, I don't know. But we'll certainly see it on the 23rd. Once we get our hands on this and we get to play with it, we're going to know an awful lot more. The best thing about Logic is sidechain and good metering. Yeah, so just the ability to have a master track, no auto normalization, good metering. It's going to help you finish off your projects a whole lot better. That is for sure. Yeah, fingers crossed for MIDI for sure. I still use a Tascam 4-track, and if Logic ports over SMPTE, then I'm definitely all in. Thus, allow. Yeah, there you go. If you can sync your 4-track via MIDI, how cool would that be? That'd be awesome. We've got time for one or two more questions. We're going to keep this to a 45-minute stream here today. So this one comes to us from Obo, who says, "Hello, sir. According to you, does iPad 9th Gen have much better performance than 6 because of multi-cores?" Yeah. Short answer is yes. If we go back again to that Apple Compare website, so we've got the iPad 9th Gen, which is up here. It's one of their current models, the iPad 9th Gen. If you compare it to, say, the 6th generation here, you've got not only the bigger screen there, but you've also got the A13 Bionic chip as opposed to the A10 Fusion, and you've got the six core CPU and 4-core GPU. So I've used both of these devices. So I've used the older one with the A10. It's very sluggish. It's an iPad that I don't really recommend, the 6th or the 7th generation. I think if you can jump to the 8th, which has the A12, or the 9th gen that has the A13 Bionic. As I said before, my two daughters have those. One has the 8th and one has the 9th, and they both love them, and they both do a great job with everything that they throw at them. So yeah, if you're in the market, I would recommend, if you can upgrade to something like the 8th or 9th or even the 10th generation iPad, you'll be good to go. You'll be golden. That is going to do it for us here today. We do have about 2 minutes left, so if there's last minute questions or burning things that you wanted to say, you can throw those in here right now. But don't forget, you can jump on over to logicipad.com, and that's my website. That's where I'm going to store all the information. So bookmark that one, because as we do more live streams, as we do more videos and tutorials, because yeah, I thought that I was going to have a quiet time over May, June this year. I thought, we'll have a nice quiet winter break here leading into Songtember, but no, that will not be the case. We'll be busier than ever. Yes, as Mark says, my iPad 5th gen is great for surfing the web. Exactly. Watch some YouTube on it, surf some web, and you'll be golden. So once again, if you're watching on the replay, if you missed the live stream here, don't fret. Just go down to the description, go down to the comments, leave your comments there, leave your questions, leave your feedback. If you don't love the subscription model and you want to rant about it, I'll listen to you. I'll sympathize and I'll empathize, because it's not going to be for everyone. But that's okay. Again, the beauty of creation is you get to choose. If you want to be creating on a $500 Dell laptop, you can do that. If you want a $10,000 Pro Tools HD rig, you can do that. If you want a $500 iPad, you can do that. If you want a $2,000 iPad Pro, you can do that. If you want to record on a 4-track tape machine, you can do that. If you want to buy the latest and greatest and kit yourself out with all the different plugins, you can do that too. So you do have options. Just keep that in mind. But I did want to thank you if you did get some value out of this one, if you learnt something, or if it helped you make your future decisions. Thumbs up, guns up down in the below section. Leave a thumbs up and leave me a comment down there as well. And don't forget, we've got a heap of shows coming up over the weekend. We've got the Happy Hour, we've got Your Music Live, and GarageBand Weekly next week will be an interesting one. We'll be chatting all about this, and we'll be getting ready and anticipating the release of Logic Pro on iOS. So as we say at the end of every show, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll see you next time here on Studio Live today. Bye for now.